Ratchet? Oh dear, my arm. And no, what have I done?
What have you done?
Who are you?
Someone with a lot of questions. Let's go for a ride.
Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a true next-gen PlayStation 5 game. This is actually the second PS5 game I've played, the first being the Demon's Souls remake. And although Demon's Souls has really good visuals and ray tracing, and makes use of the controller speaker, haptic feedback, and adapted triggers, it's still a PS3 game. But Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was made for and only for the PS5, which completely changes the way it's designed. The entire story is based around instantaneously moving through these rifts to other dimensions and switching between characters in entirely different parts of the galaxy, with absolutely no loading, which is only possible because of the PS5's custom SSD that this man probably stayed up every night for the past 7 years to come up with. And for those of you thinking, but I've never seen a loading screen other than the initial one while playing these games, well, you can probably imagine what was happening while you were doing this about 100 times throughout the game. But there's none of that in Ratchet & Clank, and there's no initial loading screen either. Just look at this, and you're in. When we think of games where the player is supposed to physically become the character, we usually think of the ones that use Wiimotes or devices similar to it. The first game I played that showed me that even a controller like this can let the player be a part of the action is Metal Gear Solid. When Psycho Mantis tries to convince you of his psychokinetic powers, he tells you to put your controller down and then makes him move on its own. And since he can read your mind and movements, you have to connect your controller to a different memory slot in order to deal damage to him. And during torture scenes, you have to button mash like an absolute machine in order to survive, which leaves both your character and you in real life exhausted. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is one of the only games that I played since then that was creatively designed to have this controller as an extension of the game by doing all these crazy fun things to match what's happening on screen, rather than just being a means of controlling the character. Every gun has a unique feel to it, literally. Each gun makes the controller vibrate differently, and not just in intensity. You can feel the sharp little bursts when using a gun like this, and a huge pulse that flows throughout the entire controller when using this gun, which brings a whole new level of fun and immersion when using different guns, and actually makes me excited when a wave of enemies appear, and almost as excited as this lady when I buy a new gun.
Mrs. Zircon was betting you would pick that one.
Every gun also has 2 steps for pulling the trigger halfway and then all the way.
Pull the fire trigger halfway to shield yourself, and pull it all the way to shoot a short-range, widespread blast of sweetness! Sweetness!
And for guns that are fully automatic, the trigger continues to kick back with each shot. My second favorite use of the adaptive triggers is how the trigger does this jolt backwards when you pick up the orbs and the anomaly puzzles. And my favorite use of the adaptive triggers is how you have to keep pumping the left trigger as you accelerate with the hover boots and can feel each thruster blast. Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction was I think the second PlayStation 3 game I played. And I remember that, as I was playing it, I was like, those graphics. This is basically real life. This looks like a Pixar movie. This is it. This is as good as graphics are gonna get. Now I look at Tools of Destruction and go, ugh. But you gotta understand, this was back when Pixar movies looked like this. And then I played Uncharted 4 and was like, okay, now this is it. And yeah, it's still a crazy good looking game. But this is as good as graphics are gonna get. Right? Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is fairly linear and sorta plays out like a Naughty Dog game, where it takes you on a ride that goes like this. You arrive at a place, make some progress in the story, beat some baddies, feel the action and tension slowly escalating until everything just goes mayhem. Except, it falls short in some ways. The story isn't that crazy, and is pretty predictable, and it has a God of War style conflict where you're trying to do one thing the entire game, but end up with all these PS2 style roadblocks just to slow you down, such as, you know how you just defeated a wave of enemies and did some so that you could free these hippie gators? Well, go do that another 3 times at different locations on the map, because that's fun, right?
No!
And the twists can be annoying, such as when you finally get the quartz to fix the Dimensionator, but oh no, it broke, and now you gotta go somewhere else to repair it. But the game seems aware of these issues and makes sure that each world doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't take long to get to the climax of each world, so even if a dumb roadblock appears, you waste no time in immediately trying to solve the issue. And the lighthearted mood created by the art and the jokes make it easier to look past the annoying stuff.
Is all this fighting really necessary? Can't we talk about this over some lemonade?
No! The Emperor despises lemonade! Nothing should be sour and sweet!
One of the most important changes to Rift Apart is the addition of the new main characters, Kit and Rivet, who are the dimensional counterparts to Ratchet and Clank. Kit is a good character and is quite different from Clank. Rivet is also a good character and is different enough from Ratchet to keep things interesting, but could be more different. And it's really cool to see them interacting with one another and to switch between them. The gameplay is a highlight of this game, because of the controller features I mentioned before, and also because the game keeps introducing new mechanics and weapons that change the way you play. You can use the dash technique to cross large gaps, or to dodge attacks. The hover boots are supposed to be used to travel faster and to gain speed to cross larger gaps, but I also really like to use them in combat to circle around enemies. Tethering rifts can be done to get to unreachable areas, but also as an escape or to get more strategic positioning in battle. And you're forced to use the magnetic boots every now and then, which are a nice switch up of things. Most of the guns are unique, but some kind of suck and feel like worse versions of others. One of my favorite weapons is the Topiary Sprinkler, which is a sprinkler that turns enemies into plants. But you can even use it on bosses. And it'd be even cooler if there are more than like 4 boss fights, not including all the recycled ones. When the platforming isn't being buggy, the environments are fun to explore, even though the plants don't have the most activities to do. There are enough things to collect, and the journey to collect them are usually enjoyable and engaging. The collectibles themselves are cool too. Gold bolts let you customize aspects of the game and your character, with some customizations being better than others. You can also find spy bots to get recordings from Miss Zircon, which gives some information about the planet you're on. There are other collectibles too, but my favorite one are Lorbs because they contain diary recordings from another Lombax, which reveal more about the story and can be traded in for armor pieces. Despite it almost being a year since its release, the PlayStation 5 is still really tough to get, and especially with some of the big releases being scheduled to release on both PS4 and PS5, it may seem pointless to fight against scalpers and go insane. But Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart makes the struggle worth it. It shows that these games might be holding themselves back in terms of design, because unlike other PlayStation exclusives we've seen over the years, Rift Apart isn't just a visual upgrade, but is instead similar to VR and using Wiimotes, a new way to experience games.